Welcome, Steve, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Mushroomhead and this new album, and obviously more things related to the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking, so how are you today? How are you? How is the band Mushroomhead during the last couple of years?
Things are really good. We're really excited about the new album. Actually, just got back from a short European tour a couple of days ago, and getting ready to go back out in the United States here in the fall and for the month of October.
Hmm. Okay, so talking about from the composition for this new album, when did you start writing songs for this new one? Are all the songs new, or did you rescue any compositions that were left all for the previous albums?
The majority of it, 90% of it was all pretty new. There is one or two ideas I know that were kind of always floating around the back of my head, that made it out to this record. But the majority of it, was very much a post-COVID thing, man. Everyone was really excited to get back in the studio and be in close quarters with each other and create music at loud volumes. The album is very diverse because there's a lot of, like I said, post-COVID feelings. Some of it's kind of dark and depressing. Some of it's very energetic and is full of hope and energy, and some of it's just real aggressive. So it wraps up the last couple of years, of kind of what the world's been going through, and we captured some of that in the studio.
No? Okay. And talking about the previous album and also with this new one, how do you feel about this release compared to the previous one, which came out during a difficult time to the pandemic?
Yeah, I still love A Wonderful Life. This one's very much an extension of it in many ways. As far as the art form and the delivery, it's a little shorter than A Wonderful Life, but I think this one has, like I said, a little more. It's kind of more of a sinister tone to it, and it's definitely, like I said, because of going through the COVID thing and everyone, really just kind of being excited and having that aggressive tone, and just attitude. It was great to get back in the studio for sure.
Oh, okay, okay. So many bands and musicians see each album as a child. Each one is special in its own way. So what makes you this album special to you, and what this brings you as musical and lyrically?
This one's very special just because it's album number 9, and anytime we release an album, it's special because it's fresh material that you get to go play live. You get to kind of relive in a different way because as you're making it, sometimes you're so close to it you can't appreciate it as an art form. So when it's done, you get to listen to the whole album and actually kind of appreciate it as a whole. I always find that uh, very interesting to be able to look at it in a completely different way once it's done.
Okay, okay. So, and for this, how do you decide when it's time to work on a new songs and a new album? It's been 4 years since your previous album was released. So, what made you now the right time to release a new one?
I think after working in the studio for a little while, things kind of started to move along quickly. And next thing you know, we had, 12, 11, 13 songs to say, wow, there's enough here to put out a record. And, Napalm Records was very interested in helping us out again. And they did in many ways, again, on this record. And I just, yeah, I have to say a lot of props. I got to give a lot of props to Napalm Records on this one. They stood behind us. They understood the band and the brand and kind of where we needed to go. So they helped us out with some of the art direction and the mastering as well. Can't speak highly enough of working with those guys.
Okay, okay. So, I'm talking about the promotions for this new album. What kind of plans do you have for this new album? Obviously, compared to the previous one that it was released in 2020 at the time of the pandemic. So perhaps you will release more videos upcoming for this new album. You will embark on tours, or perhaps you already working on a new album for Mushroomhead. Who knows?
Currently we are just working on the touring end of it. We're hoping to, maybe get another video in. We'll see before the end of the year. But right now we're focused on just getting out there and promoting and touring. Like we've got another tour coming up in the States starting October. So really looking forward to that.
Hmm. Oh, okay, okay. Now talking about other kind of topics, and in especially and especially about the in general the style that you preach with your band. So you were born in the era of alternative metal. Was growing up, which was in the mid '90s to the end at that era. So how do you see this alternative sound in the world since those times? Do you think it had a real impact on the metal world now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a resurgence of it. A lot of people are getting into the new metal era again. And yeah, I definitely, a huge impact on that whole thing.
Okay. Another detail that you mentioned is about new metal always caught my attention usually is about the music style that you make. Is during the late 90s and early 2000s, the big media or the media, the great media, plays many bands as a new metal, this kind of stuff, from a conceptual style of looking of similarities. But I could never find ideas of the same musical line as you find in the heavy metal, death metal, etc. of styles. So how do you see this association of the media in bands that you not resemble each other? Because Mushroomhead is not like Deftones, and they don't like look like Korn, and the list go on. So for you, how is your perspective about this new metal label that the media put in the ends of the 90s, beginnings of 2000s, but at the same time, those bands or those bands involved on this, according to the media sounds, it's not like reflect in the same way that well this kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I completely understand, and my feeling is that new metal era is just like you said, it's a label that they put on bands. The sounds are nowhere near the same as far as like a style of a band. It's just the bands in the late '90s, early 2000s, that just were getting popular at that time. So they got this label or this brand of new metal, and it didn't really identify a sound as it did in era.
Mm. Oh, okay, okay, okay. I understand. So after more than 20 years of this style placed by media and not by a spatial distinction, with a peculiar sound in all bands that appear at the end of the 90s, and with many things fitting better through the years, do you think we can still consider this style as a new metal or new metal? Or could we call it more alternative metal? Because your sound is more like for me, it's more like in alternative metal than new metal or new metal.
Sure, we've definitely got more of that experimental alternative edge to it than new metal, even. And again, putting a label on Mushroomhead is very hard in and of itself. There's a lot of styles being blended together, a lot of styles from song to song, um, and the albums are very dramatic, and it's not one size fits all. So again, it's hard to just put us as new metal or alternative or experimental. When we're all of those things, it's very much art at the end of the day. And it's hard to put on just say it's one style.
Okay, okay. If someone who discovers you that you were born in the beginnings of 90s, they would you think that they will think that you play like more classic metal from heavy metal, perhaps that metal, etc. Because obviously for your mass, the people think that you play more classic stuff, but it's not your case. Obviously, the band sounds is modern and includes sounds from different styles with metal. So, what is the reason for your musical evolution, and how do you find your sound when they ask you?
Again, it's very hard to define the Mushroomhead sound. Lately we've been hearing that it's very cinematic, and I guess by meaning that it's kind of more than it's multifaceted. It's more than one mood. So and I have to agree with that. If you like things like Pink Floyd, The Wall, some of our albums are very much aggressive versions of that, if you will.
Okay,
At
okay.
least that
So
style, yeah.
Yeah, I understood perfectly. So we are close to in this interview, Steve, for this situation, and talking about a topic that changed the perspective of understanding of metal worldwide in general. It is social networks. As you know today, thanks to this media, metal became more understandable and comprehensible, and even lost the sense of impact, fear, or mystery that it had during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When you talk about one name, brujeria, and brujeria, you think that the people are very narco-satanic people. I remember very well. Or talking about Slipknot or you with the mask behind, they're more like monsters. Or King Diamond speaking about they live in a castle with demons, monsters. This kind of stuff is very interesting for a lot of people that came from the 70s or 80s like me. Came that I put a huge attention, tried to read more lyrics, tried to read the booklets for the albums, etc., etc. But and also the 90s, we have the 90s bring to us the black metal with the burning churches, etc., etc. So now there's no mystery or curiosity that metal gave you on a general level. So what is your point of view about this move away from the fear, mystery, or curiosity that the metal had before, and now everything is more comprehensible, more acceptable, and more things?
Yeah, the internet definitely did that. The times changed where, subculture became pop culture and modern culture. As an example, when you think back to, you were talking about earlier bands that had more of that shock rock appeal to it. When you think of horror movies, it was kind of the same way. And at some point, zombies became not scary; they became acceptable. You saw it on The Walking Dead became this huge show. And again, you saw plush dolls of zombies all of a sudden, video games of it. Like I said, this subculture became pop culture and turned into modern culture just because of the saturation of it. It's the same way with metal. There's been so much of it, and it's been kind of branched off into so many forms that it's been more not just acceptable, but just easily accessible. So there's more room for it to be acceptable. So I see it very much the same way with like horror movies and video games and things of that nature. Like I said, when subculture becomes pop culture.
Yeah, yeah. And we're very close to this interview. Well, one of the last questions for this interview, Steve, is as you can see now, the AI is creating art. Is obviously is working with the Facebook, with a lot of media, with a lot of media channels. And as you can see now, obviously the metal since the beginning try to process or try to present cover arts with a shocking way, with a shocking themes like nudity, like satanist, like I don't know, abstract things. Obviously, your cover arts like something like devils, monsters. There's a lot of things, but now the AI doesn't understand these kind of things because when you put a nudity in Facebook or Instagram, automatically this algorithm or the AI censorship the nudity because this program doesn't understand the concept of the art for a lot of bands or that still exists now. So for you, how is now the censorship is very related with the concept of the AI trying to censorship some kind of different arts into the, well, especially metal?
Yeah, well, the AI thing is really interesting to me. I'm very excited about it. Being an artist and being an old school artist, it makes me think of, when up to the point when the first camera came out and took the first picture, what was, the main paintings, it was going for realism, trying to make it look like exactly what we see. And everyone focused on that. And then the camera came out and just wiped it all out. What happened? The humanity and the people started making different art that the camera couldn't do, where, it was a lot of surrealism and, just a lot of modern sculpture and things, like not that sculpture wasn't around before, but where people took art into pop culture again and, made completely different things that a camera was unable to do. It makes me excited to see what humanity is going to do now that AI is has the ability to help create music and art and things of that nature. I wish it was a little bit different. I wish that the AI that was out now was helping me cut my grass and do my dishes and my laundry so I could have more time to do my music and my art. I don't want it the other way around. So it's interesting to see where it's headed.
Okay. And now, well, we are with us. Well, one of the last questions for this interview. What's your point of view about now the well, la bandas like Hanabi or Baby Metal or huge bands that came from Japan as a new and as a new movement that well that use your influence like the Slipknot, Mushroomhead, Deftones because these new bands are trying to reflecting the sounds of the 90s with new movement like the jam, like a new game stuff, electronic, industrials. So how do you see now this very impact with the the Japanese new bands with the alternative sound that you create in the 90s?
I think it, well, if anyone is inspired by anything that I've done and anything that I've done collectively with everyone else in the past as Mushroomhead, I'm honored that anyone was inspired by what we've done. And I think with taking some of that attitude as far as inspiration and doing things with a modern twist and a modern sound and just your own way, like again, it's an honor and it's a pleasure always checking that kind of thing out. Baby metal is really, really something. It's nothing I would have ever thought would have been like a huge thing or even a combination to put together. So when I was first shown it, I was kind of floored and blown away, and then watched it and listened to it and watched it, listened to it, and it's incredible what's going on, man. Some of the playing's just insane, and just the amount of stage work, and I mean the girls and the choreography, and it's a hell of a show. So it's been cool being turned on to that type of thing, and again, it's an honor if anyone was inspired by us in any way.
Great. Thanks for this answer, Steve. And well, Steve, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. Thank you for your time. This new album's a great one. Congratulations on this new one. So perhaps do you want and add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metalino followers?
I just want to say thank you very much. If you've been here 30 years or you've just been here for the last 30 seconds, I appreciate your time and all your support. And again, I'm just honored that you like what we do, and we hope to get a show or a festival near you sometime soon next year.